This past year, I've been corresponding with a Hollywood industry insider who has chosen to remain anonymous for this video. Why would he want to remain anonymous? Working in Hollywood is a pretty prestigious gig. Why does Hollywood have a certain way of doing things? Even if the audience has shown so many times in the past that they are tired of being spoon-fed the same old thing over and over again. No punches are pulled in this one-on-one interview. We talk about the things that most commentators in this space are afraid to even go near. Things get controversial, and things get real, as only they can, on Comic Book Cinema. Culturally, more so than ever before, starting with a certain Orange Man's re-election, and more recently with the Kirk tragedy, we're starting to see a shift. No matter what side of the spectrum you're on politically, I think we can all agree that political agendas that blatantly point out which side is the bad guy and which are not have no place in film. We watch movies to be entertained, to escape our oftentimes grim reality, not to be preached at or told how we should vote. Believe it or not, most of the people that work in the industry might agree.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate your support in helping me get started in this space.
So, you recently started a YouTube channel, Righting Wrongs. What was your main purpose for starting that channel, and what do you hope to accomplish? Can you tell us a little bit about mandated DEI requirements in modern film? The late Mr. Kirk had an example of how DEI mandates don't really bring out the best in different industries, but in fact create more of an unequal playing field. I don't think that anyone would want to see an NBA that mandated 50% of the players be white. We wouldn't truly get the best league or players in a league that's 75% black being forced to transition to 50% white. How is this any different in Hollywood? Is this the reason we're seeing so many race swap characters in the MCU and the DC universe?
I started the channel to explain why we have seen a decline in storytelling in movies and TV. Unfortunately, there's a breakdown between imperialists, who try to see things objectively, and emotionalists, who process everything personally and become territorial. That makes building bridges or finding agreement difficult. Take the word wokeness. It started as a progressive term but is now used for mockery, losing any clear meaning. In my videos, people misinterpret criticisms of rules as attacks on individuals or groups. For example, opposing restrictions on male-female kissing scenes or rules that limit female characters is often read as being anti-women. My next video will explore how mandates around representation and quotas compromise stories, bankrupt beloved IPs, and fail to reduce division. Ultimately, the point is that criticizing policies is not the same as criticizing people. And genuine representation requires studios to care about meaningful storytelling rather than checking boxes on a spreadsheet.
No distractions, please. I'm going to need you to hide those arms.
I think you hit the nail on the head with the imperialist emotionalist breakdown. Unfortunately, we're surrounded by too many emotionalists in today's world. Just look no further than the George Floyd situation a few years back. From the riots to the trial, that whole incident was fueled by emotion rather than objective thinking.
What?
To keep this about films, though, it certainly seems as every female character in Marvel movies are portrayed as flawless. Just keeping the discussion in the MCU DCEU realm, look no further than the most unlikable character in recent MCU memory, Gaia, or the recent What If series only focusing on Kahori, Captain Carter, or even the Marvel Zombie series with Ironheart, Miss Marvel, or Kate Bishop. Can you blame pundits who call the MCU the MCU? It's almost as if Marvel is trying to overcorrect by adding as many female characters as they can to make up for the straight white male club in phases 1 through 3.
I take responsibility.
There's so much to unpack with these charts that you've sent me. Marvel has certainly dipped their toes into the race swapping of legacy characters as of late. Norman Osborn in the animated Spider-Man show, Captain Sam Wilson. I've always made the argument that if I were a black man, which obviously I'm not, but if I were a black man, I would feel kind of cheated that Marvel's putting such little effort into putting black characters on the screen. I know it's been done in the comics already before, but Sam Wilson is Falcon. Why do we have to make him Cap? I'm not a fan of mantle passing no matter the situation. I also wouldn't have been a fan of Bucky becoming Cap. To me, Captain America is Steve Rogers. Batman is Bruce Wayne. Why can't we introduce black original characters that service the story instead of just throwing them in there to meet quotas? We also get to see why the term girl boss has come about by looking at these charts. I don't think the LGBTQ rules surprise anyone.
D, give me an I, give me a C, give me a... All right, I got it.
Given that the LGBTQ community represents about 5% of just the American population, would you say that they're overrepresented?
I think calling it the MCU is the result of what we've been seeing over the last few years post-Endgame MCU. Nobody had an issue with Black Widow, or Gamora, or Wanda. If anything, I think people at the time felt Black Widow wasn't given her due with her own solo movie. I think people were initially open to projects featuring female legacy characters. I personally enjoyed WandaVision for what it was, a Pleasantville or Truman Show story of self-discovery set in the Marvel Universe. But with each passing film or show, just seemed to get worse and worse. She-Hulk was the show that became the breaking point for me. I personally think there was an intention to do an all-female Avengers. Captain Carter, Wanda, She-Hulk, Kate Bishop, Yelena, Ms. Marvel, and Jane Foster's Thor. If you look at the series finale of Marvel's What If, seemed to be a way for them to sneak in the all-female team they never got to do in the main canon. Why would you establish so many female characters if you didn't plan to do anything with them? Swapping a character's race is a no-win scenario in most cases. I think switching a character's gender or race was initially a novelty, a way to see something familiar in a new light. But if every character is changed an infinite number of times, we start to lose their identity and the meaning that defines what we loved about the character in the first place. It can be fun to invert a character, but that's what a show like What If can be used to explore. Character isn't a custom setting in narrative storytelling. A story is trying to say something at the end of the day. You'll notice they didn't race or gender swap Tony Stark because they know it would only hurt the brand. To your point, everyone loved Blade. Everyone enjoyed Black Panther. Spider-Verse was incredibly successful. So the idea that characters of color can't be profitable in the mainstream just isn't true. Instead of giving original characters an opportunity to win over fans, they tried to undercut their own audience and deprive them of the characters that could actually represent. You bring up a fair point in regards to representation. There's no definitive metric for what's considered enough because it's purely image-based. It's about the company appearing to do something significant. The demand is never truly fulfilled. It isn't increasing box office numbers in any meaningful way, and just because something is included doesn't mean it was included well. This is why humanity and art can't be reduced to a spreadsheet. Friends of mine who are writers, who also happen to identify as queer, were infuriated by these restrictions because they realized they couldn't get true adaptations of the characters they love. As writers themselves, they found it discouraging that anything they created might be forced to change to appease a set of rules that ultimately makes everything feel so sterile and soulless.
I'm told, but Agatha is the gayest Marvel project yet. Do you agree?
It better be.
The Black Widow solo movie was definitely too little, too late, given that she died a few movies before that. Most MCU fans enjoyed WandaVision. When you include female characters that are flawed and serve a purpose, no one bats an eye. When you're showing the fans an obvious push or dash to add as many female characters into the mix as possible, that's when eyebrows start to raise. People see through that. Hot take, I didn't hate She-Hulk. I know most everyone else did. The special effects were unfinished, but the humor worked for me. That seemed to be everyone's biggest problem with the show. But it made me laugh. What can I say? But I truly understand the complaints from the fan base. Agatha and Ironheart were both so much worse than She-Hulk. Echo was bad, and Secret Invasion was by far the worst. Even Ms. Marvel wasn't as good to me as She-Hulk. When it comes to race swapping, the virtue signalers, aka white liberals, will say, where in the character story is it important for them to be white? And I'll say, when the illustrator colored them white in the books. Comic books a lot more so than books are a visual medium. When you give us fans a race-swapped or gender-swapped character, we feel slighted. It's also a lazy way to give people of color representation.
We don't do that here.
The new Blade with Mahershala Ali was first announced in 2019. 6 years later, and we still don't have a script. Maybe Marvel just isn't good at adapting black characters to the big screen.
It's like working with Mercury. It's high science, man. It's art form. Yeah.
In the past, you and I have discussed the landscape of Hollywood currently. The out-of-the-closet conservatives from the industry, which are a rare breed, always talk about how your public politics massively affect your future work. You have a whole YouTube channel where you remain completely anonymous. Why do you feel you have to do that? If the wrong people found out you were against most of the propaganda and the hive mind mentality, how could that potentially affect your career?
Right? It's such a bizarre choice just to try to establish Yelena when they could have brought Natasha in from another timeline, considering this is the multiverse era. But clearly there were all kinds of problems between Scarlett and Disney. Oh, so you're the one guy who didn't hate it? Kidding. It's telling that we now have debates over which current Disney character or project is the worst, and that it's not as clear-cut anymore. She-Hulk holds that title for me because it got to the point where I didn't feel compelled to watch Agatha or Ironheart. Girl boss fatigue had set in by then. Those projects just felt consistent with the decay that She-Hulk brought to the MCU. It all just felt broken after that, like something you had to force yourself to forget. Marvel could adapt characters of color for the big screen. We've already seen the success of Black Panther and Blade in the past. However, current rules and priorities have led to overly contrived screenplays. Following the unfortunate passing of Chadwick Boseman, Disney used the opportunity to elevate multiple female characters. Meanwhile, Blade has been stuck in production hell and delayed multiple times. X-Men 97 writer Bo DeMeo has also expressed frustrations regarding the Blade project and how, at one point, it focused primarily on female characters. Hollywood has sadly always been an industry built on social conformity. I call it Neverland because it's a town full of young people who leave their families to chase their dreams within a hierarchy that demands compliance and rarely rewards 90% of those who live there. Many believe that agreeing with everything will help them get closer to success. But in reality, does everyone in Hollywood think exactly the same on every single issue? Of course not. However, when everyone is afraid of being let go for not agreeing, they all jump on the bandwagon. It's gotten to the point where people can't have real conversations or debates anymore. We're not producing meaningful results with these rules, and yet pointing that out is considered offensive. So most people just look the other way. We saw what happened with Gina Carano, Zachary Levi, and others who didn't play the game the way it's supposed to be played. In some cases, speaking out can even negatively impact other people's careers, not just your own. In Hollywood, if you become problematic, your co-stars who once came to your house for Thanksgiving suddenly stop showing up. They just pretend that relationship never existed. Because Hollywood is like high school. Everyone wants to sit at the cool kids table and is willing to abandon real friends to make it happen.
What do you think it would take for that culture to be changed and upended? Will it ever happen? Is it just me, or has there been a recent cultural shift that has ever so slightly affected Hollywood? Or is that just a temporary setback for the hive mind propaganda machine?
Oof, that's a loaded question. I think people should at least question why, after such a consistent decline across virtually all franchises, companies that are interested in profit wouldn't change their business model. There has clearly been a desire to own every IP people enjoy with generational value. Obviously, the decline in profits is forcing audiences to turn away. In the meantime, smaller companies are producing content. It really boils down to audiences choosing themselves over biased products and seeking meaning and substance in what they consume. There are those who are completely complacent with what they are given and don't even remember what they watch. The responsibility falls on the viewer to make a genuine conscious effort to explore something different, something underground. That's how things used to cycle out. Indie films would take chances on the fringe until they became a style or trend. But now there's a stronghold monopoly trying to keep things the same going forward, which doesn't sound like a free creative industry to most of us.
The late, great Smokey the Bear once said, "Only you can prevent forest fires." Folks, only you can prevent garbage from continuing to pollute your airwaves. Sir, thank you so much for your time and the discussion. We will definitely do this again in the future. Perhaps next time we can go a little further into the rabbit hole.
Thank you. I truly appreciate you having me on and being open to these conversations. At the end of the day, we're all fans, and we just want quality entertainment to enjoy.
Don't forget to check out his YouTube channel, Righting Wrongs. You can find the link for his channel in the description below. Lots of great content over there. He's killing it. Until next time, thanks for watching.